Hello there, I'm back. I've been away for a couple of weeks, I've been a little busy, but I'm back. What I'm going to do is a summer roundup. Basically a lot of films that have been released in the summer, the second half of the summer anyway, and I'll just start talking about them. Now, to be honest, there isn't that much out, and most of the films released aren't really worth talking about in depth, so there's no real point in trying to do individual videos, so I'll just do a longer video just to get out of the way. Okay, it's been a kind of weird summer. I mean, the two best ones are basically Civil War and the Nice Guys. I've talked about Civil War, I'll give it to Nice Guys when it's released again on Blu-ray or DVD. So I'll pick it up at the end of the year, but I'll just talk about the other films that come out. I mean, the early part of the summer wasn't that great, and it got worse for a while. It really got worse. I mean, the worst one of the summer so far has been Independence Day Resurgence. But Independence Day Resurgence is not just bad, it's appallingly bad. It's one of those films that's so bad it's not good, it's so bad it's a train wreck that is fascinating of how everything went wrong. It's sort of like Speed 2 or Batman and Robin or Battlefield Earth or Wild Wild West. That kind of level of bad where every decision they made could not be more wrong. So I can't really say much beyond it's terrible. I mean, there's nothing worse. The characters don't work, the build up is slow, the ending's terrible. They throw in lots of sequences but there's no character to be involved with, so you end up sitting there and just getting bored most of the time you're watching these explosions and these actors trying to keep their face straight because they've been told to say the most ridiculous things. I mean, it's an appalling film, but it's fascinating how bad it is. I mean, you only get one of these films every so often. I mean, normally you get something that goes wayward, like Jupiter Ascending, or even more Gods of Egypt, which are really wayward films. And we'll get to both of them in the future. But they're kind of interesting because they're going to go so bizarre. They're kind of enjoyable, and this one, no, this one's just boring. But it's a train wreck, it's just so awful. But I'll go beyond that because I can start ranting with that one. But I'm not going to. Right, next I'll talk about Ghostbusters. This was when some say pick up a little bit. I mean, the films I've seen recently, I wouldn't say any of them were great, but some of them are entertaining. I mean, Ghostbusters is obviously the remake that got a lot of ire from the fans. How can it be women? How can you not have the originals in the original parts? And it's like, I mean, a train wreck if they did that. I mean, the whole movie would have been bad if they just did a Ghostbusters 3. That's my opinion. I just don't think it would have worked because the actors are too old. There's no enthusiasm for it from the modern day audience. And even this film didn't do that well. I mean, Ghostbusters is a cult film now. I mean, it was a big hit when it was released, but it's now a cult thing. A lot of people love it, but it's not a mass audience thing anymore. And this is the best you can really hope for. I mean, it's an enjoyably fun film. I mean, the premise is still good. I mean, 4 character actor comedians been put in a situation that's good for some laughs. The film itself is a bit flabby. I mean, the central plot line isn't that deep. It's kind of a remake of the first one, but not as good, not as good a villain. That's the big problem, is the plot is like not that much fun. But it's serviceable, really. It seems to be a case of there's about an hour and a half of jokes, and then the last half hour they have to deal with the plot, and it's like, oh, we better deal with the plot. And so the last half hour is like the worst part of the film, but it's still fun. The whole film's fun because the actresses they have are enjoyable. I mean, they don't replace the originals, they're different characters, and they've got their own take on things. The humour's more broad, but it still works. It's a fun comedy. I'd watch it again happily. It delivers what you want from a film called Ghostbusters. It will never be as good as the first one, but it's a lot more fun than the second one. The second one had remember the river of slime and the good slime, bad slime stuff, and a lot of bored looking actors who did not want to be there. At least they're engaged in this film, and they really seem to be enjoying themselves, and obviously I love the first film. The love for the film comes through the whole experience. They probably to a detriment to the actual film itself because they refer to it a bit too much, but obviously they love it, so that's why this hatred has been getting leaves a bad taste in the mouth, because it's haters hating on something. They say they love the film, but they're actually attacking other people who love the film as well. It just doesn't work really. So I enjoyed the film though. I think it's the best thing about it is Kate McKinnon as the eccentric scientist. Some people don't like her performance because it's a bit glitchy and a bit like there's lots of weird twitches and stuff. But it works. The part is a character who's dislocated from the world, who can't communicate properly, who's a scientist who doesn't quite communicate what she thinks. So all this twitchiness is in character. So it really works. And it's really funny. So in other parts are all fun as well because they're much more grounded, much more based in people who have to live in the real world, even though they've all got their flaws. And the whole thing about the man-hating thing is ridiculous. I mean, they treat everybody who's not a Ghostbuster the same way as the original treated everyone who's not a Ghostbuster. It's just, that's the thing. So, I mean, it's a fun movie. I mean, it's not a great movie, it's a fun movie. That's all it had to be. That's all it was. And people should just get over it. You know. The next one I look at is Legend of Tarzan. Legend of Tarzan is the new, like, return of Tarzan, the Lord of the Jungle, the Ape Man. I loved Tarzan as a kid. I watched the Johnny Weissmuller films all the time. I've got them in DVD. A lot of them are terrible now. You look at them. But I have a soft spot in my heart for Tarzan. I loved him as a kid. And watching this film was a weird, you know, situation for me because on the one hand, you sense the director loved Tarzan as well, because there's lots of little details that are pure Tarzan. It's like made by someone who probably watched these films as a kid as well, because you can sense that the real enjoyment of the character and the way his Tarzan react, the way he swings through the trees is like, this is the stuff I wanted to see when I was a kid type of thing. A lot of that's in the film. There's some great stuff in it. Unfortunately, the script's terrible. The script's really awful. But the thing is, one of those things that the actors and the direction actually make up for the script, because the script just stop-starts. It's almost like it's a sequel to a film that we haven't seen, because it starts with Tarzan in London having been discovered as the Earl of Greystoke, and then he has to go back to the jungle and rediscover his roots as Tarzan. So it feels a bit like Superman Returns, where Superman left, had to come back, and then has to come back into the world again, and into his world, and get back into the swing of things. Tarzan, why do we remake Superman Returns if it wasn't a well-received film? This one is the same problem as that. You kind of just want to, it's a new actor, you just want to see them become Tarzan through the first film. You need an origin story for this guy. You don't get it, you get the origin story in these little flashbacks throughout. And the flashbacks are more interesting than the main plot. And the actual structure is annoying because you don't want to see Tarzan in London like, at all. It's not interesting. So I think they realised that they're getting back to the jungle as quickly as possible. I'm sure there were some more scenes there that they cut out, but it feels like it was cut down, that first section. And then as soon as they get to the jungle, the film works a lot better. It's still got lots of plot problems. I mean, they're hampered with the fact that the plot is kind of dumb. It's based on history about the Belgians in the Congo, but just because it's based on history doesn't mean it's interesting, because they don't do enough with it, and the characters don't do anything. The villains aren't motivated in interesting ways. They're just like, we want the money, and we're going to use that money and these diamonds, these blood diamonds, to take over the Congo, get richer and richer and richer. That's the plot, and it's like, oh, I've seen that. It's not very interesting. The best stuff is just the character stuff, where you basically see the directors working with the actors, and so you see Tarzan, even when he's in London, he can't really, he's still kind of awkward in London. When he goes back to the jungle, just seeing him about his environment, that's always great, because Alexander Skarsgård, who plays Tarzan, is a good Tarzan. He understands the character. He knows they know to keep him not speaking much because Tarzan doesn't talk ever in any of the movies. He's just not a talker. That's what's cool about Tarzan. So that's all good because all the physicality's right, the stares are right, the way he interacts with people are right. All that stuff is great. You just wish he'd actually done a story that was worthy of him, because this story is not worthy of Tarzan. They have Samuel Jackson as the sidekick, who's a historical figure who's trying to prove the slavery going on in the Congo. It's a cool sidekick character, but it's not a sidekick, but it's well played, it's fun. It's obvious the actor's having a lot of fun with the character. It just works well. But again, it's like in a proper Tarzan film, why would he be there? It kind of feels like that's a sequel to something. It feels like it's a rebooted sequel to earlier films. Like, it just doesn't feel like its own identity. This script, it just feels like it's been developed and developed and developed, and then they've lost whatever was interesting in the first place. So they've now been a sequel to a film that hasn't been shot. But despite that, it still keeps moving. But the worst thing about it is they're trying to be PC and they're trying to show off the villains as scary. So by doing that, they make all the African characters look weak and stupid, which looks completely racist. They're trying to be PC about it, and then it's like, oh, we can't have Tarzan killing all these natives, so we'll have the natives conspire with the Belgians, and they want the Belgians to kill Tarzan for them or bring Tarzan to them. But it makes the natives now look really weak and ineffectual and stupid, because if they didn't do that, there wouldn't have been any problems. The film wouldn't have worked without the natives being really stupid. And the whole film, if Tarzan had not gone back to the jungle, the whole film wouldn't have needed to exist, because the villains would have failed if he hadn't even returned to the jungle in the first place. So it's a plot that just doesn't really work. It's just, it makes everyone but Tarzan look dumb, and the villain's plot relies on everyone else being really stupid. And the lead villain, played by Christoph Waltz, is not that smart himself. He just relies on everyone else being gullible as hell. So it just that whole script just does not work. But the actors push it through. The worst part beyond that is the fact that Tarzan and Jane in it, and they're separated from all the film. You see them for about 2 minutes at the start in London, and then they get to Africa and they split up straight away, and they don't meet up again till the end. And you see them in flashback together briefly, played by younger actors. So there's no chance for these two actors to actually get much chemistry together. They do fine for the scenes they've got, but they don't have much time together. And if you want to see a Tarzan film, you want Tarzan and Jane in the film all the time together. And this film takes away the thing you want to see in a Tarzan film. So it's just dumb. The script's just dumb, but the way the director shoots it, the director obviously loves the characters though, and it makes up for so much. Even though some of the CGI looks fake as hell, it's still shot with love, so you can ignore a lot of the flaws, because the sequences that work really work, and anything Skarsgård's being Tarzanish, it really works. So it's a kind of guilty pleasure movie in the sense that it doesn't really work as a story, but it works as a visual experience. So it's like, don't pay for it full price, but it's worth a viewing at some point because it is an enjoyable bit of pulp. Okay, now on to Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne is the worst Bourne film. It's the worst one. It's worse than Bourne Legacy. And Bourne Legacy is one of those films that suffer from being not as good as the first three Bourne films because it had a different lead actor, but it had some pacing issues and had some silly ideas in it. But at least it had some a good, more interesting new character in the lead, and it's some conspiracies around about him that actually were new. So it felt like a new experience, even though it needed some directorial flash. This film is the opposite in the sense that it's got a lot of flash for the director, but it doesn't have any ideas, and the lead character had become fairly dull over the years. So you get Bourne, who's played by Matt Damon again, coming back out of the... been from disappeared for 10 years, now he's back. He's been discovered working with one of his ex-comrades from the last three films, who passes information on to him before she gets killed and tells him it relates to his father. And that's the plot. He has to bust through a lot of conspiracies to get the guy who ordered the death of his father. And that's the story, and it's boring. I mean, there's a bit about the internet and conspiracies about information. There's stuff like that in it as well, which is barely really brought up. It's there, but it's never really explored. And you feel it was a script point that they never figured out what to do with, but they had to make the film straight away anyway. So it's one of those films that there's one plot point that really works, and if they'd stuck to that, it would have been fine. Which was Bourne and the guy who killed his father are out to kill each other, because the other guy who killed his father was then, when Bourne released all the files in the last films, he was suddenly captured by his enemies and was tortured. So he hates Bourne for a legitimate reason. Bourne hates him for a legitimate reason. Vincent Cassel plays this guy. Whenever they're going against each other, the film works because you're interested. It's like a western. These two guys are going to kill each other, and that works. And whenever Bourne's zeroing in on Tommy Lee Jones, he wants to know what the hell is going on. It works as well as Tommy Lee Jones, even though he's playing a lesser part for him. He's still having some fun with it. He's playing a guy who keeps down close to the chest and doesn't show much emotion, but there's little looks here or there that works for the character. So whenever they're kind of facing off against each other or trying to get each other killed, it works, it's fine. That's about an hour and a half film. They just had that, would have been fine. A simple revenge story, that's great. All this other stuff about the internet and about his father's past, which makes no sense and it's just dumb. And that takes about a half hour of the film. And you've also got some set pieces going way too long. It's like they've realised they don't have enough story, so they're going to have some more set pieces because people like set pieces. But what happens is the set pieces just go on and on to the point where you're bored watching them because it's like, is this still going on? What's the point of this? And even the good ones, there's a bit taking place during a riot in Greece at the start, which is a terrific sequence, and then it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and it wanders around for 5 minutes with no point, and then it gets back to the point. And by that point, you're thinking, God, just end, please end. And finally, they get to the story points there, and that's what happens at the end as well, where they set the villain up. Bourne faces him. He has to go and get the other villain. You're just wanting a punch up between them. Instead, you get a massive car chase which makes no sense, that has nothing to do with the story, that you don't need. You have 5 minutes of this car chase goes on for forever. And you're watching and thinking, why am I watching this car chase? Because they had to fill time. And that's the movie, they had to fill time a lot of the time because there was nothing beyond this central plot of these people trying to kill each other. Everything else you didn't need. And it really makes the film suffer because if you just cut out the garbage and just cut some of this stuff down, it would have been a really terrific B-movie. It would have been a terrific like revenge movie with these people facing off against each other and just out for blood. Because the acting's good. They've chosen some good actors. Everyone does their job, but it's just the script and the direction is just so self-indulgent but underwritten, and it just doesn't really work. And it's a shame because the first 3 films were terrific entertainments, and after 10 years you're hoping if they brought it back they'd have some ideas how to do it, and it's obvious they didn't have any ideas. I mean, the thing was, the legacy was from the writer of the first 3 films. He directed the legacy, and it was a film with too many ideas and not enough polish, and this film was too few ideas and too much polish. And it's like the 2 people who were making these films have split apart and they needed each other. So now you have two lines of story which are pretty imperfect because they don't have the other person to even out their flaws. So now you've got a Bourne film that isn't that well liked, and now the series is like in free fall because this one did well, but it's not going to do well the next time round because people were burned by this one. And the film could have been salvaged if they just cut out some of the excess and just said to the director, this stuff is boring, just to get rid of it. And the whole plot doesn't make sense because he's trying to find out his father and finds out his father, spoilers, started Treadstone, which was where he went to and where the whole plot started, so it turned out his father created it. Now, I saw a Cinema Snob review of this film and he said, well, couldn't you just have looked at the front page of all those films he released? And it's true, I mean, all he did was look at the front page and realise his father was a guy who set everything in motion. But they don't do that, and so basically the plot can be solved by him reading the front page of a file that he'd read. That's dumb plotting. That's really dumb plotting. So again, like, it is like Legend of Tarzan in a way that the villain relies on everyone else being stupid around him. And Bourne relies on everyone being stupid around him to get by. There's not much ingenuity here, it's entertaining. I don't think it's entertaining, but it's still very lacklustre. But I still kind of enjoyed it despite all those flaws. Same as Tarzan, I enjoyed it at a B-movie level, but it should have been a lot better. Okay, now to Star Trek Beyond. Star Trek Beyond is the third in the series of the reboots that was created in 2009. An alternative universe for Star Trek based on Kirk, Spock, Bones, all that stuff. And it's been a fun series so far. The first one was really enjoyable despite having some plot problems. Second one, first half was decent enough, then it fell apart. The last third was an abomination. So the third one was making up for the last third of that movie because that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because how bad it was. This is the best in the series. This is miles better than R2. It actually has a story that you can follow and doesn't have any bizarre cheats that you need to try and sort of ignore. It sticks to the point, it puts them on a planet and have to get off the planet. It's all about character interaction, it's all about solving problems one after another and dealing with a villain who has his own agenda. And it just works. I mean, it does nothing new, like, at all. I mean, nothing's there. I mean, everything, you can see something set up early that will pay off later. But that's not a problem because it's so enjoyable that you don't really care about those little plot points. Like, I mean, the big thing about the trailers is everything is Enterprise is destroyed. Then the other one have set that up as another new ship has been built, so you know that's going to be the new Enterprise. So even though you know the Enterprise is going to be blown up, it's not a problem because it's going to be a new one, and they'll get stuff like that. That's kind of obvious, like the there's also other things that are set up that are just kind of obvious. Like, they meet certain people, you know someone's going to be a villain, you know someone's going to help them. It's stuff you've seen before a million times, but it's written well and it's acted well and it's directed well, so it's enjoyable. It's got that kind of, it's not camp, it's an adventure feel that the original series had that I think has been missing from the series. It's been missing from the movies since forever, because I don't think the old movies had much of that either. They became much more science fiction-y morality plays, and the new series of films after that were just retreads. Until this one was the first one, it felt like an adventure story for a long time. I mean, there's been bits and bobs that have been adventurous, but not since the 60s have they really focused on adventure. Star Trek's gone from an adventure series to being like a pompous sci-fi series with New Next Generation and the Star Trek movies. There's been a couple of good ones that have had adventure elements like Wrath of Khan and First Contact, but they've still been more focused on the morality tales and less the adventure side of things. And the problem with Star Trek is when it's trying to be serious, it is pompous and it doesn't think a lot of stuff through, and it thinks it's got all the answers. It becomes very annoying. It's basically like a person you want to smash in the face. That's Star Trek when it's at its worst. At its best, something like in Wrath of Khan or First Contact, you see much more imagination. You see it's a much more interesting world, much more flawed world, and that's when it's at its best, when there's actually doubt to whatever's been said, because then it becomes human again. So Star Trek's a weird series. I mean, I love the original series because it was based on the characters. There was like a optimistic side to it that really was lost after that. it just became like these like it's almost by rote, these are perfect people, and it became really boring to watch. So this goes back to imperfect people in an adventure situation, having to survive, having to work out what the villain wants, why he wants to do stuff, and then how do you deal with that. And that's the story, and you just see these character interactions you haven't seen for years, like Spock and Bones annoying each other for the whole movie. That's great. You can do that for movie after movie and you're going to deliver, because the actors understand the characters and the interactions always work because they like to annoy each other. You've got Kirk being the leader for the first time without actually having to rely on Spock for everything, because he always seemed to rely on Spock for almost anything in the first two movies. Even when it was annoying each other, it was that dynamic, and it was getting pretty boring because it wasn't quite Kirk either, because Kirk uses a better idea of what he wants, and this movie is much more like that. And the supporting characters all have more fun with it, and even if they see an element coming, so do the characters. So you see the villainous characters, actually Kirk sees that she's the villainous character as well. So it becomes fun because they know the cliches they're using. And the actual resolution at the end of who the villain actually is maps well with the original series and who the villains sometimes were, which were Starfleet officers who'd gone a bit bad. And it was based on human frailty. And that was much more like the original series and much more like what you'd want from it. And it was much more, yeah, it was an adventure situation, but it was based on human frailty and trying to be optimistic within human frailty, which is what Star Trek is best. Not this kind of pompous, we know everything thing that goes on sometimes. So this is a very enjoyable movie. The plot won't blow your mind, but it's really well made. It's sort of like a lot of stuff that Simon Pegg does. He wrote it with some other writer, and a lot of stuff, it's like nothing's new in it. It's just that he knows the cliches well enough, and his love for the conventions are there, so that comes through. And also Justin Lin from the Fast and Furious franchise directing it, and he's good with ensembles and he's good with action, and his films always have this kind of optimistic, warm feeling to them, and that really works well for Star Trek. So I'm hoping they keep him around, because he seems much more appropriate for this series than J.J. Abrams was, because he seems to get what the flaws are and what the interesting parts are of the series. So it was a really enjoyable experience. It's, after Civil War and Nice Guys, it's probably one of the strongest films this summer, even though it's not up to the level, but it's still really enjoyable. And finally we have Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is the new controversial DC movie. It's just been released and it's a terrible time with critics, but it seems to be doing well with audiences so far. We'll find out as it goes if it keeps it up. But it's open big, but the critics loathe it. I think it's unfair. I mean, the film's a B movie. It's a total B movie, but it's a better B movie than Jason Bourne is, or it's a better B movie than Legend of Tarzan, because it's basically the Suicide Squad in Escape New York. Basically, Suicide Squad is this DC characters who are Dirty Dozen, but with supervillains. They are sent out to defeat someone no one else can defeat, with understanding that if they get killed, tough. And if they succeed, they'll get a little bit off their jail time, but not everything, and they keep getting sent out to these missions. So this is the origin story where they've been set up and are sent out to take down Enchantress, who's taken over the city. So it's basically they have to move through the city to get Enchantress and to take her down and stop the threat. But it's basically Escape from New York, and look, everything's dark. There are these mercenary characters dealing with situations in a very unconventional way. I mean, it's Escape from New York, basically. That's all it is. But it's fun. It's not as good as Escape from New York, but it's fun. The characters are well defined. You know who everyone is. They're a bit like B movies. They're defined by some quips rather than characterization, but you get a lot of little details that make it work. The interaction's fun. Like, the actors seem to really enjoy working against each other, and that comes across so much that even in lesser scenes it keeps it going. Even in action scenes which have kind of repetitive, the way they react to the action scenes keeps it interesting all the time. so it's always enjoyable. But it's not deep at all. It really is a B movie. I mean, every character is surface level. That's all it is. So if you like that kind of thing, like a bunch of like caricatures, go into a city, it's dark, they're fighting all these monsters, they end up fighting the main monster, that's it. You enjoy it. If you don't, you won't. It's a B movie. That's all I can say about it. It's a genre movie. It knows what it is. It does it. It does it fairly well. The characters are better than the plot, and it just depends on your taste after that. But yeah, I mean, the villain's not great, but it's more to do with the writing. Apparently it was written in 6 weeks, this script, and you can tell because there's not much development of plot. It's just like, set them up, throw them into the situation, they'll wander around for a while shooting people, they'll deal with the situation. It could have been a TV episode, because there's so little set up, and then it just goes to the point. That's all it is. It's just meant to be the introduction to these characters. You could actually do a good sequel to this and actually have them a more interesting, when they're set up, you can find a more interesting thing for them to do, you could do a really cool sequel. But it worked well enough for what it was, this first one. I mean, the Enchantress was a decent villain, but not great, because the look was good, the idea behind her was good, but it didn't do anything with her. It's like, she set up something, she waited there for them to get to her. But even though she's supernatural, and she could have messed with them the whole time, and made some really cool sequences, they don't do that, and it's like, that's disappointing, because you could have done some really cool stuff with that, and they don't do it, they don't have enough imagination to do it. But it still works for what it is, which is a big, fun, dumb action movie. I mean, it just does get a lot of hate. I mean, the thing that deserves the most hate is Jared Leto as a Joker. He's awful. He's terrible as a Joker. He's the worst Joker ever. I mean, people complain about Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, but this guy is nothing on the Joker for bad. This is, I mean, Jesse Eisenberg's a good actor who I think was ill served by his director and writer. This is that an actor gone completely bananas. And I heard some of his stuff get cut out of the film, and there's some stuff in the trailer that isn't in the film. And it's like, was there some sequences cut out because they realised that the acting didn't work? Because he's meant to be this guy who's scary and he's a business guy as well as a psycho, and everyone's meant to be terrified of him, but he's not scary at all. He just does things in a very random order. A lot of the other Jokers, it's how they say things that makes them scary. Like Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger, it's how they say it, the intent behind their eyes that makes it scary. Mark Hamill's voice in an animated show makes it creepy because you know there's some evil intent behind them. This guy is just saying things, and it's like a wimp trying to be cool. There's just no threat there, and it's like, why didn't somebody just shoot him? He's just not scary at all. He's kind of like that Hannibal Lecter in Hannibal Rising, where he's trying his best to be creepy, but there's just nothing there. It's just like, yeah, you're not scary. So I think I have a big problem with this Joker. I think it would have been, I don't know what they're going to do with this one, because it did not work, and it's the main villain for DC. The Joker's a scary villain, and this Joker doesn't work. So we'll see what happens. But it's still an enjoyable film, even despite the Joker, despite the kind of weak villains generally. All the actors worked. Will Smith's a fun Deadshot. I mean, you could give him his own movie and it would be fun because he knows the character well. Harley Quinn's great. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, great fun. She has a lot more to do than this she did in Legend of Tarzan. She nails the character. They do a lot more with the character. Hopefully they'll find ways to expand her into other stuff. I mean, it's the ending it sets up that she's probably going to be in other stuff now because the character obviously worked. Captain Boomerang worked. Jai Courtney, who's been pretty much hammered for a few different acting parts in the past. He's really funny in this. He's basically a football thug with boomerangs. He's just fun because he's just clueless half the time, but he still gets the job done. All the characters are fun. Rick Flag, Joe Cameron's Rick Flag works as well because he's a stoic guy that you need in the midst of all these monsters, and he pays off because he is stoic, and everyone else, he's a straight man, and everyone else can jump off him. and that really works. So it means even Will Smith has someone he can play off, so he can be the funny guy and doesn't have to lead and be serious. So because Joel Kinnaman does that. So I mean, I'm really surprised it's getting so much hate. I mean, it's just because it is a B movie, but I think it deserves better than it got. But a lot of films when they're released, people don't get them. I mean, there's famous stories like The Thing or Blade Runner. All these films get hated when they're released. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think it deserves better than the response it's been getting. But it doesn't matter, it'll do well anyway. But it is fun. It's worth watching if you like those kind of cynical genre movies. If that's up your alley, you should enjoy this. Just don't expect a masterpiece. Just go for a B movie. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little roundup of the summer movies. It hasn't been great, but it's been okay though. I mean, you've had one utter disaster, a couple of failed genre bits, and a couple of nice surprises. That's a typical summer ultimately. So, anyway, I'll see you later.